Everything fell apart for me the instant I spotted who was beside my son in that vehicle and caught snippets of their discussion about me. I'm Lydia, 62 years old, and I could never have pictured unearthing such a vicious and merciless scheme cooked up by my closest relatives. It started that afternoon when I chose to drop in on Javier, my sole child, unannounced. I'd baked his beloved treat and figured delivering it to his workplace would lift his spirits. As I drove into the lot, his silver sedan caught my eye in a secluded spot. A playful notion crossed my mind, bringing a childlike grin to my face. I'd tuck myself away in the rear seat to startle him upon his return. I eased into the unlocked vehicle without a sound, huddling low behind the front seats. My pulse raced with anticipation, envisioning his startled joy as I unveiled the chocolate cake he'd cherished since childhood. I stayed put, barely breathing, attuned to every noise outside. Minutes dragged on like hours until footsteps neared. The doors swung open. Javier slid into the driver's side and someone else claimed the passenger spot, a female voice. Initially, I assumed it was a colleague, but then recognition hit. It was Raquel, his spouse. Warmth washed over me at first. How touching that they'd wrapped up work to head out as a pair. Yet that fleeting smile vanished as their chat unfolded. Raquel's opening remark pierced me like icy blades. "You're certain no one will raise suspicions once it goes down?" she inquired, her tone icy and unfamiliar. "Raquel, we've gone over this endlessly. It's foolproof. Mom's mishap will seem utterly ordinary and convincing. Folks won't bat an eye at an elderly lady tumbling down the steps in her rundown home." Javier responded, his words sending shivers down my spine. The breath whooshed out of me. This couldn't be real, what I was overhearing. My boy, my lone son, whom I'd nurtured solo after his dad perished in a construction mishap when he was merely 8, was scheming my murder. Post-funeral, once the dust settles, we'll offload that decrepit house and settle into the neighborhood we've craved. That place fetches $200,000 combined with her nest egg, and we'll finally thrive as we've longed. Raquel pressed on, her voice laced with wicked glee. My thoughts froze. That decrepit home was where I'd poured my all to afford Javier the finest upbringing. Each corner brimmed with recollections, endless vigils by his bedside during illnesses, modest birthday bashes rich in affection despite tight funds, cozy evenings tackling schoolwork at the dining nook. Alvin and Patricia are fully committed, aren't they? Javier probed. Those names crushed me further. Alvin, my elder sibling, and his partner Patricia, entangled in this infernal plot too. Naturally, your uncle's scrambling since getting laid off, and Patricia keeps harping on how your mom's always been tight-fisted toward us. She insists it's high time the clan claims its due. Raquel shot back with disdain. Tight-fisted. That slur reverberated in my head like a stinging refrain. From age 18, I'd scrubbed homes to provide for my child. I even pawned my bridal jewels to fund his university fees. I skipped new outfits for myself so he lacked for nothing. Her life insurance will cover us nicely, too. Another $100,000 without a hitch, Javier tacked on. Right then, I realized the gentle child I'd molded was gone forever. Silent tears streamed down as I huddled there, begging silently that they wouldn't spot me. I shook not just from terror, but from a grief so deep it threatened to splinter me apart. Their talk dragged on, mapping out every detail of my doomed end, the precise timing, staging it as mishap, even feigning grief at the service. Once they exited the car and strolled off casually, I lingered another 10 minutes before stirring. I climbed out transformed, no longer the devoted, naive parent who'd slipped in earlier. That trusting mom perished in the shadows of that back seat. On wobbly feet, I made my way to my aging vehicle, aware a pivotal choice loomed that would alter life irreparably. The drive back was a haze of disbelief, vision obscured by sobs, my spirit fractured beyond repair. It defied comprehension. My son, the very purpose of my life, plotting my demise for cash. To grasp this treachery fully, though, I must recount our journey's origins. My bond with Javier dates back 35 years to his birth amid utter destitution. His father, Robert, lost his life in that construction incident when Javier was only 8. We were left penniless, without health coverage or any nest egg, just clinging to a modest, aging home we'd acquired through immense hardship. In an instant, I found myself as a solo parent raising a young boy, lacking any advanced schooling past secondary level. At 20, I began scrubbing residences for a living. Each dawn at 5:00 a.m., I'd rise, fix Javier's morning meal, drop him off at school, and then race across town tackling office spaces, homes, condos, anything to earn a wage and put food on the table. The harsh detergents roughened my palms. My spine curved from lugging hefty pails, yet I bit back any grievances. Javier shone as a kid, topping his class every time. His educators repeatedly assured me of his promising path, urging that I ensure he pursued higher education. That encouragement turned into my guiding purpose. I tucked away every cent I made, devotedly stashing it for his schooling. By age 15, he required a laptop for assignments. Other parents snapped them up effortlessly for their offspring. For me, though, it meant forgoing 3 months' earnings. I parted with my wedding band, the sole cherished keepsake from Robert, to get him that device. Javier remained unaware of my quiet burden, and I kept it from him to spare him any remorse. In his final high school year, elite institutions mailed details on their legal studies. Javier had set his sights on lawyering, and I'd move mountains to turn that vision real. Annual fees ran $20,000, an unimaginable sum for someone in my shoes. I approached my sibling Alvin for support. He held a solid position at an insurer and enjoyed a stable existence with Patricia. I laid out the details plainly. I pleaded for a loan of even a fraction, vowing repayment plus extra. His reply cut sharp and unyielding. "Lydia, I won't gamble my funds on your boy's unrealistic aspirations. He ought to find employment and ditch those delusions of a career in the field." The sting of those remarks pierced me, but they failed to deter my resolve. I took on evening shifts at a vet's office. My routine stretched from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., nonstop through the week. Exhaustion racked my frame, yet my drive held firm. On weekends, I branched into peddling home-cooked dishes. I'd whip up tamales, empanadas, pastries, whatever might yield additional cash. Javier pitched in occasionally, but I insisted he prioritize academics. "Your focus stays on learning, mijo. I'll handle the rest," I'd remind him often. Eventually, I scraped together the funds for his initial university term. The moment I walked him to registration, joyful sobs escaped me as I saw his name etched in the paperwork. My boy was stepping toward law. Every trial I'd endured paid off. Those undergrad days tested me like nothing else. I toiled up to 14 hours daily just to stay ahead on bills. Some months, my own meals were sparse, but Javier never lacked. Texts, materials, cash for hangouts with peers. I refused to let him sense any gap from his affluent fellow students. Midway through his 3rd year, Javier began romancing Raquel, a peer from a prosperous background. Her dad ran multiple ventures, and she thrived in a lavish world beyond my grasp. Initially, I fretted he'd feel outmatched, but he appeared smitten and content. Raquel treated me politely, though a chill lingered in her bearing right away. When she visited our place, her gaze scanned critically. The worn chairs, the peeling paint on walls, the compact cooking area where I fixed basic eats. She held her tongue, but her expressions betrayed her thoughts. Post-graduation, Javier landed a role at a top-tier legal outfit. His initial salary topped my 3-month haul. Pride swelled in me, mingled with ease, as I hoped for a breather after decades of relentless labor. He wed Raquel in a refined event that drained my final reserves. She'd pushed for an affair befitting their status, and despite the financial hit, I yearned for his joy. At the gathering, I caught whispers from attendees mocking the bridegroom's modest-rooted mom with subtle scorn, but I pushed it aside. Following the nuptials, Javier's drop-ins grew sporadic. Raquel cited reasons: engagements, business jaunts, kin meetups with her folks. On rare occasions they appeared, talks revolved around their upscale routine, the swanky flat they'd leased, the high-end eateries they frequented, schemes for an even grander abode. I kept it part-time gigs, as at 60, my physique couldn't sustain the former brutal shifts. Over time, I'd amassed roughly $50,000, safeguarded strictly for crises or to aid Javier should the need arise. Ties with brother Alvin soured gradually, too. Once Javier finished school and secured employment, Alvin. He began dropping biting remarks about how fortunate certain folks were with their accomplished kids. Patricia took it further, constantly hinting that I'd been self-centered by pouring so much into Javier's schooling rather than supporting the wider family. The real pain hit me when I noticed Javier shifting. His principles, his manner of expression, even his clothing choices, all transformed. Occasionally, during our chats, I'd catch a patronizing edge in his voice that shattered me inside. It felt like he was embarrassed by our modest roots. Half a year back, Javier and Raquel started discussing a home purchase in one of the city's elite neighborhoods. Those homes ran over $500,000, a figure that left me stunned. When I inquired about their funding plans, he brushed it off with mentions of ventures and deals. I also picked up on how money topics cropped up more often during their drop-ins. Sly inquiries about my property's worth, my nest egg, or if I carried life insurance. Back then, I figured it stemmed from caring sonly worry, checking if I was secure financially. But now, in my kitchen after catching that awful exchange in the vehicle, everything clicked into place. The shifts in his demeanor, the financial probes, Raquel's sway, Alvin and Patricia's collusion, it was all tied to a sinister scheme simmering for months. My boy, for whom I'd given up my whole existence, aimed to end my life to claim my estate and cash in on my policy. The twist was brutal. The funds they plotted to slay me over had been scraped together just to offer him the finest shot at life. Sleep evaded me entirely that evening. I tossed in bed, eyes fixed on the overhead, grappling with the sheer weight of my revelation. My thoughts looped relentlessly through every phrase of that fiendish dialogue. Again and again, Raquel's icy tone rang out, treating my demise like a deal, and my own flesh and blood, concurring on the murder logistics. As daybreak arrived, I rose with a resolve I'd never sensed before. If they meant to get ruthless, I could match it. Yet first, I had to grasp fully what I'd turned into for them. I resolved to attempt something unprecedented, eavesdrop on my kin. In the following days, I tracked Javier and Raquel's habits closely. I'd linger parked subtly by their building early on, tail them from afar on outings, and tune into every nuance of their talks at my place. The revelations chilled me deeper. Their spending outpaced their earnings wildly. Javier pulled in a solid $6,000 monthly as an attorney, but Raquel quit post-wedding, and their outlays ballooned. Dinners at spots exceeding $200 per meal. Raquel snapped up designer purses costing thousands, and their leased place demanded $3,000 rent each month. Plus, they'd racked up massive debts. I stumbled on a call where Javier clashed with a banker over overdue card bills. They were down over $50,000 in borrowings and charges, with rates piling on fast. The money crunch had pushed them to the brink, and I was their sole escape. My dwelling, appraised at $200,000, the $100,000 insurance payout, and $50,000 in reserves, added up precisely to what they required to bail out and snag their ideal property. Worst of all, I learned my sibling Alvin wasn't just in on it. He'd sparked the notion. One day, tidying Patricia's workspace, I caught a call that stole my air. "Lydia's been so tight-fisted with her cash forever," Patricia vented to the line. "Alvin's spot on. The clan's due its share." That miserly hag will pass eventually. Why hold off? We're hurting for it too. Alvin got canned 3 months back, and the house payments are slipping. I froze stock still outside her door. My brother unemployed for a quarter year, keeping it from me. Rather than seek aid as kin should, he'd opted to orchestrate my death for the payout. That very evening, I chose to face Alvin head on. I showed up at his door unannounced, a first for me, heart thumping hard as I rapped. He answered, face registering shock and a hint of remorse. "Lydia, what's brought you by this hour?" he queried, not ushering me inside. "Alvin, we must discuss this. Mind if I step in?" I replied, striving for steadiness. We moved to the den where Patricia sat glued to the screen. She offered a frosty hello, true to form over recent years. I settled on the couch and I chose to cut right to the chase. "Alvin, did you really lose your job?" I inquired, observing his response intently. His cheeks flushed crimson, and Patricia swiftly silenced the TV. "Where'd you hear that?" He shot back on the defensive. "The source isn't important. What's crucial is that you're my sibling, and you kept it from me. Why not reach out for support?" Alvin and Patricia shared a look that validated my gravest fears. An unspoken exchange passed between them, like they'd scripted this exchange beforehand. "Lydia, you've dealt with plenty of your own issues. We hated to burden you," Patricia said, forcing a grin that never touched her gaze. "Patricia, I'm his sibling. If Alvin required assistance, I'd step up for him. I've got some funds set aside." Right then, a disturbing glint appeared in my brother's eyes, not appreciation or ease, but bitterness. "Some funds," he mocked. "Lydia, everyone knows you've got way more than that. You've been stashing cash for ages while the family scraped by." His remarks stung like blows. "Alvin, I earned every bit of it, grinding 14 hours daily to secure my son's future. It wasn't hoarding. I gave up everything for him." "Precisely," Patricia cut in sharply, her tone laced with spite. "All for Javier. You never considered aiding your own kin. When he sought funds for university, you refused him. Yet for your precious boy, Javier, cash was endless." The discussion turned heated, tension thickening the air. It felt like decades of pent-up grudges were erupting. "You don't get it," I attempted to clarify. "I aimed for Javier to access chances we lacked. I sought to shatter our family's poverty trap." "And what of ending the pattern of partiality?" Alvin bellowed, rising abruptly. "What about your brother who deserves aid too? It's been this way forever, Lydia. From childhood, you were the parent's pet, and now you lord it over us." These claims were utterly baseless, yet I realized they'd crafted a tale to fuel their anger. In their tale, I was the greedy, favored sister, them the wronged sufferers. If the money was so vital, why not request it outright? I pressed, despite sensing the truth. Patricia let out a harsh chuckle. "To take your pity like paupers, to let you belittle us as you always do." "I've never aimed to demean you." "No, of course not," Alvin roared. "What about your home purchase while we rented? Or Javier's college degree when our children scarcely completed secondary school? Or boasting your nest egg amid our daily struggles?" Each charge grew more unjust. I'd toiled relentlessly like a laborer for all I possessed. No inheritance, no fortune, just hard-earned gains through sheer effort. But to them, my modest achievements felt like insults. "Alvin, if finances are tight, I can loan you $10,000 immediately," I proposed urgently, seeking calm. $10,000, Patricia derided. "Lydia, we're fully aware of your wealth. The property's valued at $200,000. You've got $50,000 saved, plus a $100,000 life insurance policy, and you dangle $10,000 as if we're charity cases." A chill gripped me, hearing those precise amounts. They were far too informed about my accounts. Someone had delved deeply into my finances. "How'd you learn all this about my assets?" I demanded, voice quivering. Alvin and Patricia went quiet, but their expressions betrayed them. They'd revealed too much. I rose unsteadily from the couch. "I believe that's my reply," I stated, moving toward the exit. "Lydia, hold on." Alvin called after me, but I was already departing the home. That evening, I verified my suspicions. My family viewed me as a barrier to the fortune they felt entitled to. It extended beyond Javier and Raquel. A full familial plot had simmered undetected for months. The ensuing days marked my bleakest period. I faced an unthinkable reality. My relatives schemed against my life, yet I couldn't confide in anyone. How do you admit your child intends to end you? Who'd accept such a claim? Moreover, proof was absent. Just an overheard talk from my hiding spot in a vehicle. I resolved to gather solid evidence prior to acting. To counter them, full readiness was essential. I started recording details meticulously. Their habits, dialogues, drop-ins, whatever might prove useful down the line. I also resolved on a frightening yet vital step. I'd allow them to think their scheme succeeded. Should I seem wary or challenge Javier head-on, they might alter tactics, and it grew riskier by the minute. But rather than heighten the threat, I opted to stick with my charade as the innocent, unsuspecting parent. 3 days following my showdown with Alvin, Javier rang me up to suggest a meal out. His tone came across as unusually tender on the line, sending shivers through me once I recalled his actual disdain for me. "Mom, Raquel, and I would love to treat you to that Italian spot you enjoy," he cooed warmly. "It's been too long since we've shared a family evening." We'd only dined there once, over a year earlier, and it hadn't impressed me much, yet I acted delighted. "How considerate of you, dear. That sounds wonderful." "Excellent. We'll collect you Friday at 7. Oh, and Mom, slip into that green dress you adore. We want you to shine." The pointed nod to my attire struck me as odd, but I went along without inquiring. Once I set the phone down, I puzzled over his choice of that specific outfit. I'd splurged on it 2 years back, one of the scant luxuries I'd ever indulged in. That Friday evening, I prepared with precision. I donned the green dress per his request, arranged my hair, and added a touch of cosmetics. Staring into the mirror, I silenced the nagging thought in my mind that this might mark my final supper. Javier and Raquel pulled up exactly at 7 Siu. Javier seemed on edge, concealing it behind strained grins and idle remarks on the climate. Raquel, by contrast, appeared utterly at ease, even upbeat, which unsettled me deeply. During the drive to the eatery, their chatter felt awkwardly restrained. They covered Javier's career, some imagined trips, dodging any real family talk. I answered on instinct, though my attention zeroed in on dissecting their every gesture. At the restaurant, Raquel pushed me to select the costliest entree. "Lydia, everything's our treat this evening. Pick freely, no price tags in mind," she remarked with a smile that fell flat in her eyes. As we ate, they slipped in offhand queries about my condition. How had my energy been holding up? Any vertigo episodes, difficulties with inclines? Refreshed your policy of late? "Mom, we're anxious about you rattling around in that oversized place solo," Javier voiced with feigned care. "The steps are hazardous. Suppose you tumbled." "Sweetheart, relax. I've called that house home for 30 years. Every inch is familiar," I shot back, striving for breeziness. "Still, Mom," Raquel pursued, "disasters ignore familiarity. A ground-level condo might be wiser, more secure for your stage in life." Her delivery of disasters chilled me. It rang like a trial run for the concept. "And Mom," Javier pressed, "mulled over revising your testament. I realize it's delicate, but sorting affairs matters." That nailed it. The meal's hidden agenda, verifying the will, stayed current prior to my end. "I possess a rudimentary one from some years past," I fibbed in part. "All assets to you both, obviously." I spotted Javier and Raquel swapping a swift, smug glance. It flickered for an instant, yet it validated every doubt I'd harbored. "Wise choice, Mom. Though consulting an attorney for updates could help, regulations shift, and we aim for your directives honored to the letter." Javier stated crisply. Truth be told, Raquel interjected, Javier's equipped for it. With his legal background, he'll guarantee it's flawless. The absurdity hit hard. My boy, scheming my murder, volunteered to compose the document enriching him post-mortem. Afterward, they refused to let me return alone, insisting on the full escort home. The journey veered into darker territory. They broached assorted scenarios. Mom, in case misfortune struck, Javier intoned with mock concern, any preferences for handling your effects? Must we broach such morbid topics? I countered, simulating vexation. I intend to stick around for decades. Naturally, Mom, Raquel jumped in. We're merely getting ahead, responsibly. Upon reaching my place, an unusual twist unfolded. Rather than a curbside farewell as usual, they demanded to guide me indoors. Allow us to steady you on the stairs, Mom. It's shadowy. A misstep could happen, Javier offered, clasping my elbow. While climbing toward the entrance, I detected their scrutiny of each riser, banister, every spot ripe for mishap. It echoed a survey of the intended offense site. Indoors, Raquel began touring the rooms like a valuer. Lydia, you absolutely need to go. I wish these stairs had improved illumination. They're a real hazard when it's pitch black. And then Javier chimed in to Mom. That carpet up at the landing feels a bit unsteady. It's easy to stumble over. Every remark felt like yet another sharp twist of the knife in my chest. They weren't just scheming to end my life. They were right there in my living space, figuring out the precise method. Once they departed, I lay awake through the night, shaking not just from terror, but from a grief so intense it ached in my bones. My boy had come to my place, shared a meal with me, pretended to care about my safety, all the while plotting to take me out. That evening, I faced the hardest choice I'd ever made. I refused to sit idly by while they carried out their scheme. I couldn't keep enduring the endless dread of wondering if each day might be my final one. Action was essential, but in a manner they'd never anticipate. If they desired an accident for me, that's precisely what they'd receive, except it'd be one I orchestrated entirely on my own terms. I started devising my staged demise. Scheming my own passing turned out to be the strangest and most frightening ordeal I'd ever endured. For days on end, I barely slept, obsessing over each element, potential mishaps, and how it all might unravel disastrously. Yet I recognized it as the sole path to unmask my relatives and protect myself. Initially, I required an ally. And there was just one individual on earth I trusted without reservation, my neighbor, Beatrice. At 70, she'd spent her career as a nurse, and we'd shared a deep bond for over 2 decades. If anybody could assist with this outlandish scheme, it was her. One morning, after confirming no one observed me, I headed to her home with my pulse racing wildly. She swung open the door and instantly spotted my distress. "Lydia, what's the matter? You appear dreadful," she remarked, ushering me inside. We settled in her kitchen, a spot where we'd sipped coffee countless times across the years. But this talk would stand apart from every prior one. "Beatrice, what I have to share might seem insane, but please hear me out," I started, my words quivering. I recounted it all. The dialogue I'd eavesdropped on in the vehicle, the ominous meal, the clash with my sibling, and the odd intrusions into my residence. Beatrice absorbed it quietly, though her face shifted from astonishment to revulsion and ultimately to outrage. "Good heavens, Lydia, this is utterly vile," she declared, grasping my hands in hers at last. "Beatrice, I require your support. I've got an outline, but I can't manage it solo." I outlined my concept. I intended to stage my passing so believably that even the responders would accept it as genuine. Leveraging her healthcare background, Beatrice could aid in mimicking the indicators of someone departed, holding it together until they pronounced me gone and initiated the protocols. "Lydia, are you aware of the risks? If it falters, if I slip up, I'll perish for certain," I cut in before she finished. "They've already mapped it all out. It's merely a question of when." Beatrice shut her eyes, pondering deeply. We'd require particular drugs. Dosages demanded precise computation, and the schedule had to align flawlessly. "So, will you stand with me?" She gazed at me steadily for moments that dragged like eternities. "Yes," she replied at length, "but we'll execute it as securely as we can." In the ensuing days, Beatrice and I refined the scheme's intricacies. She maintained connections from her long tenure at the hospital and managed to procure the necessary drugs covertly. We also pinpointed the EMT who'd handle the alert, a recent graduate called Ruben, lacking the seasoned insight to spot an elaborate ruse. The strategy was intricate, yet achievable. I'd ingest a tailored mix of substances to drop my life signs to barely detectable thresholds. Beatrice would discover my form, summon help, and be on site. Upon the team's arrival, she'd subtly steer their assessment to affirm my passing without prompting further scrutiny. Once officially deceased, I'd be transported to the facility's morgue, where Beatrice's acquaintance, a pathologist by the name of Dr. Jones, unrelated to my brother, had consented to assist unquestioningly. He'd alter the official record and permit my revival discreetly after the compounds dissipated. In the interim, I'd conceal myself in a hidden chamber within Beatrice's lower level, monitoring and documenting my kin's reactions to my apparent end. The toughest element involved the bureaucratic and practical hurdles. We had to guarantee no post-mortem exam, so my exit needed to seem routine and plausible for someone of my years. Beatrice proposed simulating a cardiac episode, a frequent occurrence seldom probed in seniors absent prior issues. 2 weeks following the onset of our preparations, finally we felt prepared to proceed. We picked a Sunday afternoon knowing full well that Javier and Raquel would be over at her folks' place for their regular Sunday gathering. That morning I stirred awake with an odd sense of tranquility. Following those endless days of sheer panic, the time had come to seize command of the chaos. I selected my beloved yellow outfit with precision, styled my locks, and applied a touch of cosmetics. Should the end come, I aimed to face it with poise. Beatrice showed up right at 2 p.m., carrying a compact kit of medical supplies. "Are you absolutely certain, Lydia?" she inquired once more. "Without a doubt," I affirmed. Under her watchful eye, I swallowed the pills. The flavor was acrid and revolting, yet I pushed the sensation aside. How soon before it kicks in? I wondered. In about 15 to 20 minutes, drowsiness will set in first. Your breaths will grow faint, and your heartbeat will drop sharply. It's akin to slipping into a mild state of unconsciousness. Those ensuing moments stretched into the most agonizing wait I'd ever endured. Beatrice kept a close tab on my life indicators, jotting down each shift in her pad. Little by little, a sensation of drifting took hold, as if I were detached from my physical form. "Lydia, do you hear me?" Beatrice prompted. I longed to respond, but no words emerged. Her voice reached me clearly, yet I felt utterly immobilized. The experience was both chilling and captivating. "Excellent. Your readings are spot on for what we require. Now, I'll contact emergency services." I listened as she punched in the number and launched into the pivotal performance of her existence. "Please come quickly. I've discovered my neighbor unresponsive in her home. I believe she's gone. No breathing, no heartbeat. Make haste." As we anticipated the arrival of the EMTs, Beatrice gently arranged me on the living room rug, posing my frame to mimic a sudden cardiac collapse. "It'll all turn out fine, Lydia," she murmured close to my ear. "In just a short while, this ordeal ends, and we'll possess every bit of proof necessary." The wail of approaching sirens filled the air, and if I'd retained any bodily command, my chest would have raced wildly. This marked the critical juncture. A slip in Beatrice's portrayal, medics sharper than anticipated, or any overlooked flaw could unravel everything. The responders burst into my residence laden with gear, and in my hazy awareness, snippets of their assessment filtered through. Unresponsive woman, age 62, no detectable heartbeat, breathing barely there. How long in this state? I just came across her moments ago, Beatrice answered, her tone fractured with authentic-seeming anguish. I dropped by for a visit. The entrance was ajar. There she lay on the ground. After a tense stretch of checks, the dreaded yet anticipated declaration came. I'm afraid, ma'am, your companion has expired. Probably cardiac arrest. At her age, these things strike fast. Formally, Lydia had perished. The tougher phase of our scheme now unfolded, witnessing my relatives' responses to the announcement of my passing. I roused in the cellar of Beatrice's dwelling, thoroughly bewildered and parched like arid sands. The drug's influence was fading bit by bit, though my limbs weighed like lead and felt alien. Beatrice sat nearby, overseeing my revival with the identical expert care she'd displayed during my feigned demise. "How are you holding up?" she queried, aiding my gradual upright position. "As though I'd truly crossed over," I croaked. "It succeeded flawlessly. They pronounced me deceased without question. The certificate's already inked. Per official records, Lydia Monroe succumbed the prior day at 3:45 p.m. to an abrupt cardiac event. The weight of our actions crashed over me. Legally, I had vanished. I existed as a specter, at liberty to scrutinize my kin's behavior unbeknownst to them. "Did you reach Javier?" I probed, the words stabbing painfully. "Indeed, I rang him last evening once they transported you to the facility." His demeanor was unsettling. Beatrice handed me the device with the captured exchange. Fingers shaking, I hit play on the recording. "Javier, Beatrice here, your mother's neighbor, bearing grave tidings. Your mom. She departed this afternoon." A prolonged hush followed. When his reply came, it lacked astonishment or grief. Relief colored it instead. "Oh God, what occurred?" he queried, yet his feigned dismay rang hollow. "Cardiac failure. I discovered her at home. The attendant noted it was swift. No pain involved." "Understood. Appreciate the update, Beatrice. Raquel and I are heading to the clinic at once to handle arrangements. Javier, my deepest condolences. I realize your deep affection for her." "Yeah, a profound blow, but Mother had faced recent ailments. Perhaps it was inevitable." That the deception about my alleged health issues struck me like a knife to the heart. He was crafting a story to explain my passing ahead of any prying inquiries. Once I played back the audio, the sobs came uncontrollably. The icy detachment in his words, the casual way he'd embraced the update, the falsehood regarding my condition, everything pointed to their deliberate scheme to end my life. "There's additional footage," Beatrice murmured gently. "I set up concealed cameras in your residence prior to your demise. My goal was to record their responses as they came for your possessions." She opened her laptop, granting me live feeds from those devices. The display revealed my living room, vacant and hushed. Viewing my own space from this angle felt eerie, especially realizing it wasn't truly mine anymore. When might they arrive? I wondered aloud. "Likely today," she replied. "Folks rarely delay rummaging through a dead person's items, particularly if cash is on the line." Our vigil didn't last. By midday, the jingle of keys echoed at my front door. In walked Javier, Raquel, Alvin, and Patricia, moving as a synchronized unit. What unfolded shattered my spirit. No signs of grief, no moment of sorrow, not a single respectful halt in the home I'd occupied for 3 decades. They dove right in, assessing my possessions like experts at a bidding event. "At last," Patricia uttered, her voice laced with clear ease. "Never imagined we'd reach this point." "Patricia, come on," Javier cautioned, yet his words carried more warning than true scolding. "We've just lost my mother." "Spare me the mushy talk, Javier," Raquel shot back, her chill sending shivers through me. "Everyone knows this had to happen. Your mom had her time. Now it's ours." Alvin was already rifling through the pantry shelves, hunting for key paperwork. Any idea where she stashed the banking files? We gotta locate details on her savings. Try the bureau in her room, Javier advised. She kept that stuff meticulously filed. I observed them swarm my place like scavengers, handling my things, gauging their worth, plotting the split of my estate. It resembled witnessing my existence dismantled by those who claimed to care. Raquel discovered my trinket case and started inspecting the items one by one. This necklace in gold could fetch a price, and those studs, dated as they are, might hold appeal for collectors. Emotional worth won't cover the house payments, Patricia retorted with biting irony. Stick to items with real monetary punch. Javier located my monetary records in the desk compartment, right in their usual spot. Got 'em. Savings at Northwood Bank, $3,000. Current account, $8,000. And the policy for life coverage. What's the payout amount? Alvin inquired, his interest sharp. $100,000. I'm the only recipient. Ideal, Raquel noted approvingly. Add that to the savings and proceeds from the property sale, and we'll cover the new place plus clear our loans. And we get our portion, yeah, Patricia pressed, her voice edged with menace. Naturally, Javier assured her swiftly, per our deal, a fourth for you. Hearing my relatives haggle over my legacy while my remains lay cooling in the morgue hurt beyond my worst fears. Yet the true horror awaited. Alvin spotted a group snapshot on my bedside table, one rare shot of us all from Christmas 5 years back. Rather than react with feeling, he discarded it callously into the bin. No room for these mushy keepsakes, he dismissed. Alvin's spot on, Raquel agreed. Practicality first. We're flipping the house fast, so no hoarding junk. But Patricia delivered the deepest wound. Truth be told, I'm shocked she held out this long. So bullheaded. Figured she'd drag it to 90 out of spite. They burst into laughter. They mocked me my end, my so-called tenacity for enduring. In that instant, every lingering question about my strategy's righteousness vanished. Javier pulled out his cell and began dialing. Morrison Real Estate Agency, Javier Ruiz speaking. I require an urgent valuation for a speedy sale. Yes, the homeowner died yesterday. We'd like it listed this week. No thoughts of a proper send-off crossed their minds. When Raquel brought up burial plans, Javier stated, basic cremation, skip the viewing, no rites. It's more affordable and expedient. What if folks wonder about the missing service? Alvin probed. We'll say it matched her desire for a low-key personal affair, Javier answered without pause. They were robbing me of even my posthumous respect. My scant circle of acquaintances would get no chance to farewell me. No tribute to my existence would. They offered no real funeral or any personal tributes. Just a hasty, nameless cremation would do. For 3 hours, they rummaged through my home, inventorying every prized item, scheming about auctions, and dividing up my possessions like battlefield loot. By the time they departed, my sanctuary felt utterly desecrated. That evening, replaying the footage repeatedly, I reached my ultimate resolve. Revealing their scheme to kill me wasn't sufficient. They owed me. For each harsh remark, every icy instant, every fragment of my existence they'd shattered through their avarice. Beatrice, I declared firmly, I require your assistance with the next phase of our strategy. What's your idea? She inquired, though her face revealed she anticipated something bold. I'll come back to life at the most embarrassing juncture imaginable for them all. And when I emerge, I'll ensure the entire world uncovers their true natures. My relatives thought they'd struck gold with my passing. Little did they realize the genuine jackpot was only starting, and they'd wagered poorly. The following days turned into an intense whirlwind of emotions, swinging me from profound rage to an unyielding resolve I never knew lurked within. From my refuge in Beatrice's cellar, I kept tabs on my kin's actions via concealed lenses, recording each vicious exchange and ruthless choice regarding my alleged estate. Beatrice had placed additional subtle devices in key spots: Javier's workspace, Alvin's residence, and even Raquel's vehicle. Her background in nursing had honed her precision, which seamlessly adapted to our surveillance efforts. "Lydia, check this out," Beatrice urged me on the third morning, gesturing to her computer display. Javier was in his study chatting on the line with somebody. The clip showed my boy lounging at his workstation, grinning in a way that twisted my gut. "Indeed, Mr. Davis, I get that expediting life insurance is straightforward for natural cause fatalities." "Precisely. Cardiac arrest." "No, we skipped the post-mortem. The physician deemed it routine for someone her years with that stress background. Timeline for the disbursement: 7 days. Ideal." What struck me hardest was his utterly casual demeanor. Zero hint of sorrow, not even the unease you'd anticipate from a son grieving his mom. He came across as a merchant sealing an everyday transaction. Once the call ended, he punched in another contact right away. "Raquel, Javier here. Great update. The policy clears this week. $100,000, no strings. Yep, I've reached out to the property firm already. Appraisers arrive tomorrow for the home." "What?" "Nah, no space for emotions yet. Practicality first." That closing line shattered me. His mom was gone merely 3 days prior, yet sentiments took a back seat. But the exchange that truly braced me for the plan's climax happened that afternoon, caught on tape between Raquel and Patricia at a city center bistro. "Guess the highlight of this mess," Raquel commented, nursing her latte. "Finally ditching that load. Javier carried this guilt over skimping on visits and cash for her. Now he escapes that nagging weight." "Absolutely," Patricia chimed in eagerly. "And the kicker. Nobody'll ever doubt it. Alvin's scheme was flawless. An elderly woman in her 60s keeling over from a heart issue. Who'd probe that?" "Spot on. We all come out ahead. You and Javier snag that ideal property. Alvin clears his tabs, and I quit faking fondness for that sour crone." After enduring years where I'd embraced her as my own child, Raquel labeling me a sour crone proved the breaking point. Right then, whatever faint maternal or kinship bonds lingered in me vanished entirely. "Beatrice," I stated that evening, "you've got media connections, right?" "A handful. What's up?" "I want my comeback to go viral. No private reveal giving them room to spin or dodge. Let everyone witness their real selves." Beatrice grinned, the first since this ordeal started. "My pal Maria Elena Vargas at Channel 7 News, the probe specialist. She thrives on tales like this." "Excellent. When's our chat?" The subsequent evening, Maria Elena slipped into Beatrice's place after confirming no tales, a forthright woman in her 40s, brimming with the vigor of top-tier reporters. "Mrs. Monroe," she remarked once we'd laid out the full saga, "this is downright astonishing. With the proof you mention, it could dominate headlines all year." We presented the assembled clips and sound files from recent days. I observed her reaction. She scribbled notes rapidly while eavesdropping on my relatives' discussions, her face shifting from detached doubt to real anger. "This is outrageous," she whispered after viewing the footage of Patricia, implying they'd been anticipating my demise for years, and they intended to hold a session to formally split the estate. I chimed in. "Indeed," I responded. Javier had once explained that whenever a relative passed away, we'd convene formally to review the testament and allocate the property. He called it the proper approach. "When might that gathering occur?" she inquired. "Likely next Saturday. That's typically when everyone can make it." Maria Elena snapped her notepad shut and met my gaze head on. "Mrs. Monroe, if we proceed, it's irreversible. Once it broadcasts, your existence and your kin's will transform permanently. They've already been upended forever since the day they plotted my murder for cash," I shot back without pause. "Now, I need everyone to see the true nature of these individuals." In the following days, Maria Elena and her crew set up for what they dubbed the most sensational comeback in regional TV annals. They added extra surveillance in my home, liaised with law enforcement to station officers poised to detain my relatives for plotting, and reached out to a magistrate to attend the disclosure. The strategy was straightforward yet crushing. My loved ones would assemble at my residence Saturday afternoon for the will's formal perusal. As they debated partitioning my belongings, I'd emerge at the entrance, flanked by the broadcast team, authorities, and proof of their scheme. Friday evening, Javier phoned each family member to verify the assembly. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. at Mom's place, he instructed them all. Have your identification ready. The attorney requires confirming the rightful inheritors. That fabrication about the attorney infuriated me. No such professional existed. They'd merely conjured it to lend the event an air of legitimacy. That evening, sleep eluded me. Not from anxiety, though, from eagerness. Following endless suffering, disloyalty, and shame, retribution was imminent. But beyond retribution, something sweeter awaited. The full exposure laid bare for global view. Saturday dawned and I prepared meticulously. I slipped into the crimson gown purchased for Javier's nuptials. I applied cosmetics like it was a grand event and styled my locks flawlessly. If resurrection was my role, I aimed to shine brilliantly. Prepared for the showdown, Beatrice queried, inspecting the video gear once more. I've been set since discovering my boy scheming my end, I answered with an unexpected serenity. Today they'll learn Lydia Monroe isn't simple to eliminate. Maria Elena pulled up with her filming squad at 2 p.m. The concealed lenses capture them pulling in now. She updated me. Your sibling and his spouse just arrived. Your boy and his wife are pulling into the drive. I observed via the monitors as my clan stepped into my dwelling one final time as beneficiaries, unaware that within 60 minutes their worlds would spiral into a broadcast horror they'd never escape. Mrs. Monroe, Maria Elena addressed me gravely. In moments you'll stride through that entry and face those scheming your demise. Anything particular you wish to tell them? A genuine smile crossed my lips for the first time in weeks. Absolutely. I've got plenty to unload. At 3:15 p.m., I'm monitoring my kin via the secret feeds as they arranged themselves in my sitting area to parcel out my fortune. A blend of jitters and resolve surged through me unlike anything before. It felt like decades of devotion, degradation, and agony had distilled into this climactic instant. On the displays, Javier lounged in my cherished seat, the very one where I'd once recounted tales to him as a child. He clutched a dossier of official papers, his smug demeanor twisting my gut. Raquel sat nearby in a fresh outfit likely pricier than my annual wardrobe budget. Alvin and Patricia claimed the couch, their avarice gleaming as they anticipated the precise sums of my legacy. Patricia even carried a pad, jotting figures like it was a corporate huddle. All right, Javier commenced in a pompous yet insincere manner. We're assembled to deliberate my mother's property allocation. As you're aware, her testament designates me the exclusive successor. Yet, as kin, we've settled on a fairer split, Raquel interjected with a grin that never touched her gaze. Maria Elena placed a hand on my arm. The moment's ideal, Mrs. Monroe. They're delving into precisely what I drew in a steadying breath and approached the entrance to my home, flanked by a pair of cameramen, an audio engineer, a couple of cops, and the relentless journalist who'd pursued this story. My pulse hammered fiercely, so loudly I imagined the entire block could sense it. You got that rolling? I queried the lead videographer. Affirmative, ma'am. This is going out live, he confirmed. That confirmation surged the last surge of resolve through me. A vast audience was on the verge of viewing the ultimate display of retribution they'd ever encounter. I slid my key into the latch and twisted it deliberately. The click reverberated through the interior, and right away the chatter from the lounge halted. You catch that? Patricia's anxious tone pierced the quiet. Probably just a gust, Alvin responded, though his inflection betrayed clear discomfort. I pushed the door open and strode straight into the lounge, where my relatives lounged, debating the allocation of funds from my supposed demise. The TV crews trailed behind, documenting each instant of the impending climax that would redefine their existence. As I framed myself in the lounge threshold, an utter chilling hush descended. Raquel spotted me first. Her complexion drained to ashen, and she unleashed a shriek that likely carried across the streets. "Oh heavens, no way!" she gasped. Javier bolted from his seat with such haste that he scattered papers everywhere. His gaze bulged impossibly as if ready to burst free. "Mom, but you're gone." Patricia dissolved into sobs, not from elation at my revival, but sheer fright. "It's a specter. A specter. Lydia's perished. We witnessed the certificate." Alvin froze like a statue, lips parted yet silent. "Greetings, beloved kin," I uttered in the steadiest tone I could muster. "Trust I'm not disrupting any crucial matters." Maria Elena Vargas stepped in after me, gear in tow. "Afternoon, folks. This is Maria Elena Vargas with Channel 7 News, airing live what might rank as the year's most staggering revelation." "What the hell is this?" Javier bellowed, reclaiming his voice at last, laced with frenzy. "What's unfolding, my sweet boy?" I countered, advancing leisurely to the room's heart. "It's simply that I've risen from the grave to overhear firsthand your scheme for splitting my estate." "But the clinic, the official document, the ashes," Raquel stuttered, quaking visibly. "Oh, right, the incineration," I remarked, a pleased grin forming. "Fascinating you bring it up, Raquel, given how you opted for it hastily since it cost less and sped things along. Correct." The lenses nailed the dread etching her features as awareness dawned that I held all their words. "Mrs. Monroe," Maria Elena cut in, "would you care to tell viewers what prompted you to stage your passing?" I faced the lenses, mindful of the multitudes tuned into this showdown instantly. It stemmed from learning my closest kin had plotted my killing to seize my fortune. "That's nonsense," Javier shouted, yet his tone rang more frantic than indignant. "Nonsense," I echoed serenely. "You refer to fabrications such as these." I pulled my device and activated the audio of the exchange I'd eavesdropped on in his vehicle. His and Raquel's words flooded the space, outlining my intended end. Certain no suspicions will arise once it occurs. Flawless scheme. Mom's mishap will seem utterly ordinary, utterly convincing. As the clip played on, their expressions shifted from stunned to outright dread. Raquel wept wildly, not from guilt, but alarm at exposure. "That audio's doctored," Patricia cried out in anguish. "It's made up. Lydia's lost it." "Doctored," I pressed, revealing a second device. "And this exchange, Patricia, the one from your chat with Raquel at the coffee spot just yesterday, praising Alvin's brilliant strategy." I triggered the follow-up clip, where Patricia candidly admitted they'd anticipated my end for ages and evaded all doubt. Alvin at last croaked, voice quivering. "Lydia, this is a grave mix-up. We'd never stoop to such acts." "Mix-up," I chuckled darkly. "Does that cover you all gathered in my place yesterday, partitioning my possessions like scavengers? Or Javier already dialing the insurer for my policy payout?" Maria Elena aimed the mic at Javier. "Mr. Ruiz, care to address these clips plainly capturing you scheming your mother's demise?" Javier glistened with sweat, fingers shaking. "We, this. It's a plot. Someone aims to shatter us." "A plot," I broke in. "Like the plot U4, hatched to take my life. The one where you promised Alvin and Patricia a slice of my estate in return for their help." Right then, an officer moved closer. "Javier Ruiz, Raquel Ali, Alvin Monroe, and Patricia Taylor, you're all under arrest for plotting a murder." "No way," Raquel cried out. "This isn't real. She's gone. We watched her pass." "You watched me perform," I shot back with a grin. "And clearly I outdid your fake affection for me every time." As the cops started snapping cuffs on my relatives, Maria Elena kept the broadcast going. "Mrs. Monroe, What's it like facing those who plotted your end? It's pure reckoning, I said, staring straight into the lenses. Over 35 years, I poured my soul into my boy. I toiled 14 hours daily, pawned my treasures, abandoned my dreams to secure his schooling and chances. And his thanks, scheming my demise for cash. Javier, wrists bound now, glared at me with fury and defeat. Mom, come on, it's all wrong. I care about you, always have. You care? I questioned, my tone cracked yet firm. Do you cherish someone you'd off for $200,000? Do you cherish someone who's passing you toast without a proper send-off? That's a lie. Hush, I roared with unexpected fire. No more deceit from you. I caught it all, Javier. Your scheme for my accident. Your chuckles over my fate. Patricia's shock that I'd lingered so long. Your carve-up of my fortune before I was even stiff. Tears streamed down my face at last. Not from grief, though. From release. Maria Elena, I turned to the journalist. Let the entire town hear this. Kin aren't just blood ties. True kin, love without strings, shield you in weakness, grieve your loss rather than cheer your will. As the police hauled off my boy, his wife, my brother, and his spouse, Javier shouted from the threshold, "It ain't finished, Mom. We'll battle in the courtroom." Actually, Javier, I answered with startling poise, it wrapped up when you valued bucks over your mom. Now deal with what you've wrought. Once the home went quiet, Maria Elena wrapped the on-air segment. This ranks among the wildest tales in my 2 decades reporting. A mom who staged her demise to unmask kin bent on her murder. Signing off, Maria Elena Vargas, Channel 7 News. I collapsed into my go-to chair, the very spot Javier occupied scheming my legacy moments ago. For the first time in ages, peace washed over me. Beatrice entered and settled next to me. "How are you holding up?" "Like I've snapped awake from life's ugliest dream," I said. "Like the true Lydia Monroe has risen anew." The ensuing months after my comeback felt like stepping into a fresh reality. The tale spread like wildfire nationwide in no time. Outlets everywhere dubbed it the ultimate familial payback of our era. My line buzzed nonstop. Doc filmmakers chased interviews. Authors eyed my tale for books. A studio even pitched a film deal. Yet what mattered most was this. After years of quiet devotion, my truth reached the globe. Online, support flooded in. Countless moms recounted their own tales of parental giving, thankless clans, offspring who ditched them post-handouts. Unbidden, I voiced the plight of every parent who'd surrendered all for family, only to face treachery. The court proceedings sped along quicker than I'd hoped. The audio Beatrice and I gathered stood as rock-solid proof of the plot. Javier, Raquel, Alvin, and Patricia faced charges of first-degree murder conspiracy, insurance scam, and slaying for profit. At the trials, their attorneys claimed the tapes were nabbed unlawfully. But the judge ruled that in my home, taping my chats broke no privacy laws. Plus, their intent to end me warranted whatever safeguards for my survival. The deepest sting in court came from Javier's testimony as he twisted to excuse his deeds. His counsel spun a narrative painting me as a domineering, scheming parent who'd guilted him emotionally his whole life. My client felt cornered, overwhelmed by the endless expectations from a mom who could never be pleased, no matter what. The attorney claimed that Mrs. Monroe wielded her own hardships as a tool to manipulate her child emotionally, instilling guilt whenever he sought independence. Sitting in that courtroom and listening to such distortions shattered my heart all over again. They had twisted my boundless affection and the hardships I endured into a picture of poison and control. In their version, I emerged as the antagonist, while they portrayed themselves as casualties of my alleged overbearing parenting. Yet when my moment arrived to speak, I seized the chance to share my truth. With a steady yet tearful tone, I recounted each hardship, every night without sleep, every additional shift I picked up to offer Javier the finest opportunities imaginable. I explained how I parted with my wedding band to purchase his initial laptop, how I labored for 14 hours daily to cover his university fees, how I set aside my personal joy to secure his future. Your Honor, I stated, gazing straight at the judge, I never leveraged my struggles to pressure my son. Quite the opposite. I shielded them from his knowledge to spare him any burden of remorse. My wish was for him to pursue his path unhindered, to find contentment, to build his household. The one outcome I never foresaw was that his liberty would involve scheming my demise. The trial's most intense episode unfolded as the prosecutor aired the full audio logs of our intercepted dialogues. Reliving those icy tones plotting my end, now before an audience in the court, proved crushing yet somehow cathartic. As they broadcast the segment where Patricia expressed shock at how long it took me to pass away, I noticed jurors dabbing at their moist eyes. When the clip featured Raquel calling me the load they'd at last shed, the judge himself halted briefly to regain composure. Javier dissolved into sobs amid that sequence, though I couldn't tell if it stemmed from sincere regret or sheer dread of the fallout awaiting him. The jury returned after just 3 hours of discussion. Guilty across the board. Javier drew a 20-year prison term. Raquel got 15 years, Alvin 12 years, and Patricia 10 years, deemed the least involved in the scheme but still a vital partner in the plot. As the judge announced the penalties, not one of them met my gaze. They bowed their heads, at last confronting the harsh truth that their choices carried profound and ruinous results. Post-trial, I drew near Javier for a final exchange before authorities let him off. "My boy," I murmured gently, "I need you to understand that amid all this wrongdoing, a piece of me clings to the kind-hearted child you once were." His eyes welled up as he regarded me. "Mom, forgive me. I'm truly sorry. I can't fathom what turned me into this." "You turned into a man who prized wealth above his mother's existence," I responded with sorrow. "Perhaps these prison years will allow you to reclaim the person you were prior to avarice overtaking you." That marked our final exchange. The ensuing months focused on rebuilding my existence from the ground up. I parted with the home I'd inhabited for 30 years. It brimmed with agonizing recollections, and I couldn't persist in the space where my kin had orchestrated my murder. Using proceeds from the property, I acquired a modest yet charming residence in a serene area close to Beatrix Place. I also reached a choice that utterly shifted my outlook on riches and finances. I contributed the bulk of my funds to an organization aiding solo parents in financing their kids' higher education. Since avarice over my assets drove my relatives to plot against me, I'd redirect those resources toward meaningful impact. From earnings tied to my tale's rights, I launched a scholarship program in my honor. Annually, 5 dedicated moms gain complete support to enable their children's university attendance. This serves as my method to transform my ordeal, no matter the agony, into enduring good. Yet the deepest shift in my world was uncovering a fresh circle of kin. Via correspondence and notes pouring in after my account became known, I connected with scores of folks enduring parallel betrayals. Parents scorned by thankless offspring, brothers and sisters forsaken by covetous kin, seniors preyed upon by their blood. We built an intentional bond, a gathering that convened, often to swap tales, honor milestones, and affirm for one another that authentic connection thrives, even from unforeseen sources. Among them, one figure grew profoundly dear to me, Gabrielle, a 58-year-old whose child had deserted her in a care facility post-plundering her accounts. Gabrielle and I forged a bond so profound she evolved into the sibling I'd longed for. You realize the greatest twist in this whole saga. Gabrielle remarked one afternoon over coffee in my fresh kitchen. Our blood ties cast us aside for cash, but we discovered far richer, better connections formed not through wealth, but through genuine bonds. She nailed it. My fresh start brimmed with folks who cherished me for my true self, not my possessions. individuals who cheered my successes without scheming personal gains. Those who, when my genuine end arrives decades ahead, will grieve my loss rather than rejoice in any legacy I leave. 2 years post my revival, a message arrived from behind bars. It came from Javier. Across 4 pages scrawled by hand, he expressed remorse that rang true after so long. He shared details of the counseling he was undergoing inside, how he was truly grasping the depth of his disloyalty, how his evenings were spent reflecting on every compromise I'd made on his behalf. "Mom," he penned at the close, "I realize I can't erase my actions. I accept that I belong here, and that you might never grant me absolution. Yet I need you to understand that each day locked away, I recall the remarkable parent who nurtured me, and I despise myself for ignoring your devotion." I pored over that note repeatedly across weeks, wrestling internally on whether to reply. Eventually, I chose to pen a response, not to absolve him, but to seal that era of my existence for good. "Javier," I replied, "I acknowledge your regret as authentic. Yet pardon is a prize you'll need to pursue across years, perhaps your entire remaining time. The child I nurtured lies buried beneath the adult who orchestrated my demise, and only you can determine if he's worth reviving." No reply ever came back, and that's fine by me. Now at 65, I can truly claim joy greater than in ages. My home echoes with the joy of my adopted kin. My routine overflows with purposeful community service, and my evenings hold authentic serenity. Occasionally, others inquire if I rue staging my exit, if facing my relatives through a milder approach might have served better. My response remains consistent. They opted to wrong me in the gravest manner by plotting my killing. I merely opted for self-protection with their very tactics. The key insight from this ordeal is that real kin aren't bound by shared blood, but by the affection we deliberately offer one another. My own offspring turned on me for cash, yet I discovered siblings, children, and even grandkids among those who entered my world following my renewal. I also realized renewal knows no age limit. At 62, when many view their paths as set, I seized the chance for total reinvention. I didn't merely simulate death, I simulated a new beginning. And lastly, I grasped that retribution can arrive in unforeseen forms. No courtroom or panel truly penalized my kin for their treachery. It was the unveiled reality that shattered them. The fortune they sought to slay for turned into fees for attorneys who failed to shield them. This evening, as I compose these final thoughts of my tale, I gaze from my renewed dwelling's pane at a garden I cultivated personally. The blooms I planted thrive splendidly, nourished not by old resentments, but by tomorrow's promise. I am Lydia Monroe. At 65, this recounts how I perished to authentically thrive. To any parent scanning these words who senses disloyalty from the clan she devoted her all to build, hear this: it's never too soon to claim the devotion you merit. For ultimately, authentic family isn't what births us, but what renders life meaningful. Enjoyed my tale, and from which town are you tuning in? Share in the replies. If the narrative resonated, consider a super thank you to help me deliver more such accounts. Grateful for your kind backing, eager for your thoughts below. On display are 2 fresh life tales I endorse strongly. Plenty more awaits on my page. Remember to hit subscribe. Catch you in the upcoming narrative. With warmth and regard.